I remember when the term indie game meant something else entirely. It meant a game starring everyone's favorite little tomb raiding scamp, Indiana Jones, or Henry Jones Jr., his legal name. But no one wants to watch an action movie hero named Henry, so going by the name of his dog Indiana was probably the right move. My apologies to anyone named Henry. Over the decades, there have been a small handful of Indiana Jones games. Some of them pretty good, and some not so much. In 1994, JVC published The Greatest Adventures, which was developed by Factor 5 for the Super Nintendo. It used the same engine as the popular Star Wars games from the time, and it looks and feels very similar to those games. For whatever reason, I never played it at the time, and when I tried to play it a couple years ago, the boulder chase scene on stage 2 killed me over and over, and I rage quit and I labeled it as cheap garbage in my mind and I moved on. Nobody likes a quitter though, so I dove back in and decided to review it. Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures takes our hero through his first 3 movies: Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade. There's no Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here, because it didn't exist at that point, and I think the game, and the world in general, were all much better for it. Gameplay mostly consists of side-scrolling combat and platforming. Indy can run, jump, dive roll, punch, use his whip to attack and swing, as well as fire his pistol with unlimited ammo, and throw grenades. Occasionally there are Mode 7 scenes, mostly vehicle sections like riding a raft down a snowy mountain, navigating a minecart track, and even dogfighting airplanes. It's fairly straightforward, and aside from one stage in India that makes you solve the correct path through secret doors, there really aren't any other puzzles and few secret areas. It feels kind of like a missed opportunity for some extra depth, and the obvious choice to have a temple exploring archaeologist actually, explore. But for a straight up action game, it works pretty well. Along the way, you'll fight Nazis, thuggy goons, and even the Brotherhood of the Grail as they try to stop you from advancing. Like a lot of games from the time, for some reason, every animal that exists will brutally and aggressively attack you. Rats, monkeys, bats, and birds. It's more annoying than anything, but if it exists in the world, it wants you dead. And the game can be pretty cheap sometimes. Indy gets knocked way back when he gets hit, and the stages are full of deadly pits and platforming mixed with constant enemy attacks. By far the worst part of the whole game is the second stage. It's the classic boulder scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. The problem is the screen shifts and has the player trying to run and jump to avoid traps, and if you make even one mistake, you'll more than likely die. The worst part is that you have to run on the very edge of the screen and you have no time to react to any of the traps. You just have to memorize the whole thing and then pull it off next to flawlessly to advance. In all honesty, I just abused save states to get through it because it's just so cheap, stupid, and badly designed that I didn't really feel like letting it stop me this time. There are 26 more stages after that, and I wanted to see them. There are a few bosses throughout the game, but they are mostly just tougher human enemies and kind of lackluster. That's okay though, it's not like Indiana Jones ever fought a giant skeleton mech in the movies, so I understand the down-to-earth approach here. The final boss is actually a skeleton though, in a fight that reminds me of something out of a Castlevania game, which seems fitting since Indy's main weapon is a whip, but as far as the game controls, Indy is no Simon Belmont, that's for sure. The whip attack is a little stiff and it takes some getting used to. So does the timing required to swing from one grapple point to the other. You can switch between the gun and the whip with the select button, but since the SNES controller has enough buttons to accommodate it, I would have liked to have seen a dedicated button for both whipping and shooting, which is only a minor nitpick, really. Technically, Greatest Adventures is really solid, with detailed, colorful graphics and good effects. There are nice little touches here and there, like how these leaves shuffle under Indy's feet as he moves through them. The vehicle stages make good use of the Mode 7, and overall I would say it's one of the more impressive Super Nintendo games I've played. The music is really good as well, but a lot of it's recycled a lot, and sadly the theme from Temple of Doom isn't even in the game. That's a shame, because I love that song. But in between stages there are digitized stills from the movies and text to relate the story. I would say Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures is one of the better indie games, and I'm glad I came back to it and finished it. There is some questionable stuff, like the boulder scene that might potentially turn you off, but it's worth pushing through it, and while cheap a lot of the time, Greatest Adventures is mostly fair. You have 3 continues and lots of opportunities to pick up extra lives throughout. Some parts are definitely more challenging than others, but taken as a whole, it's not that hard. It is enjoyable though, and it has a decent length for a 16-bit action game. Fans of Henry Jr. should definitely check it out, and fans of Super Star Wars games as well as fans of action platformers. Final score? 8. Pros: great graphics and music. Long game with good variety. Cool Mode 7 vehicle stages. Cons: badly designed boulder stage, cheap relentless enemies, excessive knockback.